File attack point. Mavericks inbound.
It's Pod Maverick.
A Maverick.
Hosted by Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe.
Hello, welcome to Pod Maverick Happy Hour. We'll see how long that the new intro music lasts. It has already been flagged by YouTube as being copyrighted, despite the fact that it was made by my new podcast company, Odyssey. Thank you so much for joining me. It is Friday. It's a rainy Friday here in Dallas. It's about 3 o'clock. Saw that the Byron Nelson got rained out today, which is just, it's one of those things where it feels like it happens at the same point every year. For anybody who is watching and here on YouTube this afternoon, there is a link in the notes, in the comments, which you can click and come join the show here. Second straight week, we're going to try to do one of these every Friday. As if you followed Pod Maverick and Mavs Moneyball podcast for a long time, you know that I like to do these shows with, you guys, and, kind of in a little bit of a lull in this week before, I guess 2 weeks, 10 days before the NBA draft lottery, which will be held on my birthday, May 12th. So really looking forward to that. But in the meantime, it's kind of scraps in terms of making it out alive. Josh Bowe and I did a show on Wednesday where we talked about the playoffs quite a bit, but there's just, in terms of what we have going on right now, it's just kind of a little bit of a lull. There's the news, like what do you consider news? Kyrie Irving looking like walking well while at the Lakers game. That was something. Other than that, we're just kind of hanging out. We started doing doing our player reviews over at Mavs Moneyball. So that was a fun one. Josh and I'll probably start talking about those, just kind of going player by player, but I didn't really want to get to that yet. Well, we got two folks that are waiting to join the show real quick, so I'm just going to kind of hop to those, and then I might hop back to some of the other things that I had planned to talk about, but there's really just not a lot. So I'll be interested to see what my man SC, who kicked us off last week. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Kirk. How are you, man?
I'm okay. The off season is definitely the preferred time for me to deal with these stupid YouTube problems, but it is very funny because it's like I just don't check my stuff as much. So it's like I'm excited we get new music, and then I log in. It's like, this is copyrighted. It's like, that can't be possible. It's made up. Well.
Specifically planned it for it not to be copyrighted.
That's right. So, and all that stuff's algorithmically break. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, there's no human at the end of it. But
yes, sir.
No, I've been so I was stuck in jury duty all week, so I have been just taking in NBA stuff. Nothing Mavs specific today. I did want to bring up the pop. The pop thing has me thinking just about transition of team identity.
Sure.
In the NBA, because as long as I've been alive, the Spurs and Greg Popovich are one and the same to me. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see. I know he's still going to be the president of basketball operations or something like that. So he'll still be around in some form or format, but it does feel kind of a close of an era when Pop won't be on the sideline coaching the hated Spurs team, right, in my head. But we've seen that. We've seen the identity change of the Mavs this year. We've seen kind of a change. I mean, the Heat are really bad, and they got rid of Jimmy Butler. I guess Spo is still there, but feels like they're transitioning to some different version of the Heat. As they retooled it, I guess, try to get someone else there. The Bucks feel like they're on the verge of a change in identity. It just feels like we're on the precipice of a change in the seeding of the NBA. And it's been an interesting, it's like we're in between whatever was and whatever will be coming up era of the NBA.
And I certainly think there's something to that. And, some of it is just flat out guys aging out. And then I think there's elements, there's always unforeseen consequences when you do like in a collective bargaining agreement. And this one is so restrictive that it's making even the most creative old school execs like, yeah, Pat Riley's 1,000 years old, but I think he's still pretty good at the basics. And he's probably, you know what? I'm tired of this. And they're not going to be able to put together really that competitive of a team without doing a teardown. And what I find so fascinating is I think like 20 of the 30 teams are like over the salary cap, and you can't do anything if you're over the salary cap. You just can't. And so it's like these teams are all sort of changing, they're aging out. You see like David Adelman being a coach. Well, that'll throw me for like the next 5 years because I'm just used to Rick Adelman. And there's a lot of that going on. LeBron is just kind of the last guy of a previous 2-3 generation thing. And, you sort of saw that post Jordan where I guess you had from like roughly 98 to I know that everybody looks fondly back at like the Kobe Shaq domination years, but I don't think the NBA was not that popular post Jordan. Like it experienced a major slump. And so it's I wonder if we're heading towards something like that with some of the aging superstars and coaches and stuff heading out. It's interesting. I mean, I hope not, because obviously I like following the league.
Yeah. I also think on the Kobe thing, in my opinion, it seems that a lot of people look really fondly back on that because a lot of their favorite players now or their favorite players growing up also were like huge Kobe fans or like took a lot of inspiration from him. And so his mythos has grown. His impact on the NBA has only grown because he impacted a ton of the younger stars who made it to the NBA and got popular and got big. But I don't know. It's weird. I mean, I'm still a fan. But
Yeah.
it feels like a changing of the guard, or like we're just in a season where it's like in between. We haven't gotten to what's next, but we're almost done with what's before. So I don't know.
I mean, you can make the argument with like the TNT post-game show sort of transitioning for like a year to ESPN. You have Amazon firing up their new set of coverage, which I think the NBA sort of desperately needs. Like NBA,
I'm excited about that one.
I'm
really
too.
excited about that team.
I am too, because I think the NBA needs some different voices talking about the game. Like
I just like someone that watches the game.
Sure. And I
cool.
know that people really enjoy that group of four, and I think I do too. But it was like the Shaq argument the other night where he was yelling about Giannis, and it's like you very clearly didn't see what happened, which is why you have this opinion. He was like, Giannis needs to stop being a punk, and it's like Giannis was just standing there as an old man was screaming at him. Like, what are we talking about, buddy? It's
kind of the same thing that's happening as Shaq is doing the same exact thing.
So it's just one of these it's an odd point for league coverage. And I think there's an opportunity to pivot from it. But somebody in the chat said, how about all this Luka slander? And it's just like it's just such a boring way to watch sports for me, where it's like, and I've experienced it with some of my friend groups where it's a couple of guys that just are really invested in kicking the shit out of Luka. And it's like, I remember after the Mavs beat Anthony Edwards in the playoffs last year, I didn't think about Anthony Edwards again. I was just like, oh, okay, he's done. Bye. I'm not going to sit here and like pound the guy for 3 days after they lost. It's boring.
The LA guys in my group chat had quite a lot to say about Luka as the series went on and as it ended.
Yeah, though I'm quietly not unhappy. I'm quietly happy that we don't have to have some of those nuanced discussions right now.
I said the same thing where I was like, buddy, he's your problem now. Like, I will defend the guy still, but I don't have to defend him that much anymore because he's not on my team. So whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely the case for me. It's going to be kind of another quiet week or so, and then we'll start to really get to pump up and wish cast a little bit. Interestingly, I put it about in the title about the lottery. So I ran this poll at Mavs Moneyball this week. I asked 2 questions. I'm only allowed to ask 3 for the way the software works, and I just couldn't think of a third one. I said, do you think that Dallas Mavericks going to move up in the draft lottery? So it's like a really ridiculous question because everybody knows the odds are like next to nothing, like 2% for it. I mean, I guess it's like 10%. It's low is the point. But the Mavericks have never moved up ever, which is very actually hard to do. Like they've either sank or stayed in the same place. And 40% of my respondents thought that this was the year that the Mavericks would move up, which is just, to me, it kind of warmed my dead heart a little bit because it was it's like, okay, people are still hopeful about something. And then the next question, and this one really blew my mind, was I said, do you think the Mavericks are going to keep the pick? And 7 out of 10 fans said yes, that the Mavericks will keep the pick. And that
I agree with the second, hope for the first. And if they ended up trading back actually to try to grab some additional assets because their cupboards are bare, I don't know that I'd be upset about that either.
No, I just never see trade backs in a really effective way, but other than like Cuban doing ineffective way, doing it in what the Shane Larkin draft.
You mean the former Mavs superstar Shane Larkin?
That's right. I would be kind of okay. I mean, I desperately want them to keep the pick because I like picks. It gives me something to talk about, and it's just fun to invest in a younger guy. It's like I'm kind of fed up with Max Christie by the end of the year, but he's a young guy to look forward to. And so that I just hope they keep the pick but right now they're just sort of staring at cap apron, not like oblivion or anything like that, but it's just they have 13 guys under contract and they're $3 or $4 million away. Now the cap could go up, which I think might change things. I'm not really a cap expert, but it's just a bit of a mess right now, the Mavs salary cap number. So I'm hopeful that they keep the pick just because that would, I think, give people that are if it's an interesting player or they happen to move up or do something, it's like it gives you something to root for, which would be nice.
And then I'll leave with this. I've looked at a couple mocks just in my free time.
Sure.
And every time I see the Mavs projected to draft a white European, I laugh. And there's no chance that happens.
What are we doing?
No chance that happens.
Like
not a chance.
The BYU guy, it's like that's
Igor Dimon has been on a list.
Like he's like the other Duke white guy, and I'm like, what are we doing?
I see the Illinois kid from Lithuania.
Yes, that would be like he's the most anti-Nico pick.
I see that, and I say this person does not follow the Mavs because there's no chance that happens.
Great one.
So anyway,
hey, well, thank you for kicking us off. All right,
sure. Have a good one, Kurt.
Talk soon. Okay, Michael, what's going on, brother?
How are you, sir? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
I can't complain. It's Friday, right?
It is
Friday and we're here, so yes. Doing something right. Hey, so I had a little something that I've been sort of gestating on for the last few days, and honestly, even maybe back to February, feels a little Monday morning quarterback now that the Lakers season is over too. It's the end of Dallas, it's the end of Luka, it's the end of that saga, at least until maybe next year or whenever. But it got me thinking of just sort of the extent of the trade and things like that. And I know we're beating this dead horse now, but I thought of a few parties that didn't seem to get a whole lot of coverage and some of the ramifications that might impact them.
Sure.
One being the Lakers, because everybody sort of anointed them as championship favorites. Now that obviously didn't happen, so the perspective changes. And the other being Bill Duffy. I had thought of him almost immediately after the trade. Well, after the 48 hours of shock. So call it maybe February 5th. I had the inkling of the thought, but for those who don't know, and I'm sure anybody watching this has a pretty good sense, Duffy was Steve Nash's agent, had somewhat of a falling out, somewhat of a chilly relationship with the Mavericks. For years. I remember when we drafted Luka thinking, oh my God, this whole Bill Duffy thing, this whole Nash thing from 15 years prior or whatever it was at the time, that's going to come back and haunt us from this Euro guy that we're not going to get now. And obviously it didn't work out that way. But my point being is I was thinking of it, and I've got a piece going. You might see this on the website sooner than not, but I thought of Bill Duffy's standpoint on this, and I believe for the most part, Luka was the certainly the biggest name since Steve Nash that's been with the Mavs. I think there were a handful of others.
Yeah, no, I don't remember who I read it from, but there was like When it became clear that the Mavericks were really going to pursue him, I think that there was a lot of attempts before the draft to sort of repair that relationship. A lot of it coming from Cuban's side, since he's the one who botched the whole thing.
Right. I recall that as well.
Yeah, and there was a lot of like collaborative stuff going on with all that for years and years, I think. And that's he's definitely a major player. I mean, he's one of the biggest agents.
Yeah. And I just wonder, nobody seems to like to talk about anybody else's salary, or sometimes they do, depending on the scenario, I suppose. But like, you think of like the average agent, if you Google it, what do they get 3 to 5% or whatever of the player's contract.
Right.
And everybody, I was surprised, honestly, in February that the narrative of how much money Luka lost theoretically wasn't more of a story.
Me too. I mean, it's 9 figures.
It's insane money. I mean, how many players in the league? There's probably 250 to 300 players in the league who would hope that what he lost was their biggest contract. You know what I mean? Like what he lost by getting traded. I mean, how many people on this planet would kill for that? How many people in the NBA would kill for it? You know what I mean? The numbers are staggering. But the one thing that kind of got in my head, the little like earworm I had, was think of what Bill Duffy lost. If he's getting 3%, 5% of that was the biggest single contract that Bill Duffy would have gotten money off of, right? Because it would have been, and Luka signed the Supermax, it would have been the biggest deal in NBA history. Every year there's the biggest deal in NBA history, right?
That's right.
This time it would have been Bill Duffy's. You're talking millions of dollars that this guy lost. So his 2-decade experience with the Mavericks is us disrespecting Nash, going into a Cold War, repairing that relationship, trading his next prodigy in the middle of the night, and costing him, Bill Duffy, millions of dollars in the process. You know what I mean? It's when you think about all the relationship management or mismanagement, that one was one that's kind of been just living in my head.
Sure.
And now that we've gotten that collective sort of release, the Maverick season ending and the peripheral of Luka's season now ending, all these things just started hitting me, and I was just dying to get on here. I was waiting for Friday just to talk about it and put it out in the universe, because it's like, again, is anybody crying for Bill Duffy? No, but it still hurts. I don't care how much money you make. If you lose millions of dollars because of somebody else's mismanagement, you have a right to be pissed about that, I think. And I can't imagine what he's thinking, But what it does to our relationship with him and all of his clients in the future.
Yeah. Shrimp Cocktail in the chat asks, I haven't even thought of this. Who is the 22 in the 2025 draft is a Duffy client? I honestly have no idea.
I don't either.
I mean, what has been kind of interesting draft related stuff is the NBA is really trying to tighten up on some of the shenanigans from previous years, where they're making everyone go to the combine, get measured. You might not necessarily have to do all the athletic testing, but I am pretty sure that everyone's going to have access to all the same medicals and stuff like that, which has been a tactic in the past of trying to, for clients trying to, agents try to redirect their clients to and from certain teams. So the NBA will like level the playing field in that regard. And I mean, at the end of the day, everything is business, and you want your guys to go where they have a chance to play and things like that. And I'm generally not sure on who the client list is, but it's certainly something to consider, because but at least this time it's a different ownership group. It's a different, and who knows how long like Luka, Nico is actually going to be the GM. So it's like when that sort of stuff happens, it just, you move away from it. So,
yeah. And the one other thing I'll say quick, we can even segue this into the next caller, if you will, but SC sort of put it in my head, and it was something I was thinking of. And I'm going to apologize in advance, because this is Monday morning quarterbacking at its finest. But honestly, it was something that I had thought through since the trade. My honest initial reaction after the trade, and I think I might have even written this in one of the pieces at the time, was that in the very short term, pending health, which we know how that went, I thought the Mavs were not better for having made the trade, but better than the Lakers in the moment. I thought the Lakers were sort of strapped, and SC had talked about it, and I thought what you and he were talking about before really got my mind going. I've been thinking a lot about the Bucks after the Lillard injury and things like that. And like you said, just leveling the playing field relative to the draft. I'm just curious what your thought is. It seems like the NBA, maybe with the best intentions, really, really overstepped the parity line in the sense that, look, crazy stuff's happened, right? Brunson, no way, you're never going to get Brunson on the Knicks. And then overnight they trade a handful of salaries for peanuts. They clear all the cap room. They get Brunson, right? Crazier stuff has happened. But I look at teams like the Bucks. I look at teams like the Lakers. What the hell are they going to do? Like, what are the Lakers' choices? And this is another thing that'll probably end up in the piece I'm working on now of like sort of who got hurt by this trade. You got LeBron for a ton of money. You got Luka presumably for a ton of money. They're just barely under the second apron. I mean, what the hell does that team do to get better? They were clearly outmatched. They clearly need a center. They're not a finished product. And I think the Wolves.
It's a mess. It's a mess. And the NBA is gonna. I wouldn't be shocked if there's an addendum to the CBA after this summer. Like they probably can't do it right now, but the way the CBA was constructed was basically to prevent the Clippers owner Steve Ballmer from just like buying teams into infinity. Right. But it has the disastrous effect. And my friend Matt Moore wrote about this for his blog, just that if it comes down to the fact that if you screw up your draft, you can't build a winning team. Right. So even if you've already built a winning team, like let's just use the Nuggets, for example, you are treading on borrowed time where your team is simply going to collapse unless you hit every single draft pick, because you have to keep bringing in, not to discuss it in these terms, the only ones that come to mind, but you have to keep bringing in kind of cheap labor to figure out how to do it. And that's where the Mavericks are to me, it's like, that's why I'm sort of panicked about this particular draft, because I don't want them to be bad next year, but I think they're going to be pretty bad. However, one path to being decent is like actually having a draft pick that pans out in like in an 8th, 9th man kind of way. And yeah. So it's just tough to do.
You make a great point about Denver. I think we've seen it, or we're potentially seeing it. I guess if they win Game 7, all of a sudden they look a little different in the moment or whatever. But you lose Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Yep. You lose Bruce Brown. The Warriors wouldn't have lost them during their championship run. The Warriors, right? They went right into the luxury tax. They paid 50% of their entire salary was like luxury, 150%, so to speak. They just paid. The Nuggets couldn't do that or wouldn't do that. And the other thing, and I'm sorry to any OKC fans listening, but what are they going to do when Holmgren comes up, when the Williams come up, I don't know that OKC, who did a master class of managing assets, collecting draft picks, trading for Gilgeous-Alexander, so on and so forth, how the hell do you keep that team together 5, 6, 7, 8 years?
You don't. I mean, you flat out don't. You push. You do what football teams have to do once they get a rookie quarterback, and you hope to push early. Otherwise, it just doesn't pan out.
And it sucks for OKC because, to their credit, they did everything that I would think the NBA would have wanted them to do. They drafted the majority of those guys, or at least in Gilgeous-Alexander's case, they traded for him at the right opportunity and stuff. Yep. When he was still young, when he was an unknown quantity, they built that team in almost the ideal way, in almost a very homegrown way. And their reward for it at the end of the rainbow is probably that they'd almost willingly have to break it up. And that can't be what the NBA, I hope it's not what the NBA intended by doing this. So from your mouth to God's ears, hopefully they come up with that addendum, because I think the NBA could really hurt their own product if this kind of sees itself through to the end.
Oh, that is the flip side on being at the precipice of a rebuild, though. I think no Mavs fan really wants to entertain that quite yet, unless you're with me on like selling all the assets and starting over. Right. The one nice part about that from a team building construct is you don't really have to worry about that. But I mean, I guess we do, because the team that we currently have and we're going to be watching is going to be wants to compete for a playoff spot.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. So.
Hey, well, thank you for kicking us off, or for keeping us going. Okay.
Absolutely. Good talking to you as always.
You too. Okay, before I bring MJ up on stage, just want to point out, guys, there's a link in the YouTube comments. If you want to join the show, you can do so. We'll be doing this every Friday for the foreseeable future. I'm going to insert some ads real quick. So if you can listen to those on the audio stream, if you're watching the video stream, I'm just not going to say anything for 5 seconds, and then we will be right back. Okay, welcome back. Thank you so much for hanging out during the slow off season. I'm Kirk Henderson. This is Pod Maverick Happy Hour. It's Friday afternoon, 3:30. I'm going to bring up MJ here, probably close out the show unless anybody else has something they would like to talk about. So MJ, welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, Kirk, how are you? Happy Friday.
I am good. Thank you. Thank you for joining once again.
Yeah, just a couple of things. You talked about the new stuff with the basketball for the next season, and got some inside information that, NBC, is taking over for ABC. And NBC, if you remember from the 90s, that
Sure.
wonderful, opening they did, with
John Tesh's Round Ball Rock.
dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna do that again. They're doing that same music. That's going to be their theme music for starting games. And this really interesting person that I follow on YouTube knows a lot about the history and stuff. He basically talked about that. Back in the 90s, his opinion was that there had to be a protagonist and antagonists.
Yep.
And the protagonist was Michael Jordan. And anyone that stopped him from getting a championship was considered the antagonist.
Sure.
And that's why I think everyone was. I mean, I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. I was wearing. Matter of fact, when he won the second three-peat, I had a Bulls cap on when he made that shot. When he faked out Byron Russell. And incidentally, and I think this is one of the reasons why Jordan hates. Who was it? Detroit.
Isaiah Thomas.
Because as soon as it happened, Isaiah Thomas said that he pushed off. And it basically, and he did not push off. And the thing what made Michael Jordan such a great player was that he knew every player's strengths and weaknesses. And Byron Russell had a really bad weakness of stopping. He could run, but he could not stop. And you get him going one direction. And he even made mention to this in The Last Dance when he talked about that last shot. That,
right.
He said, everybody said he pushed off. He did not push off. If you look at it, he stopped suddenly. And Russell just, it was almost like what Brunson did to the guy, to Thompson last night, if you remember.
That was a wild
same
play.
Thing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, Brunson shot a 3-point, but it was the same thing. He ran him one direction, stopped on a dime, and then I'll always remember that shot. But anyway, I'm bringing all that up because and this guy thinks that, I'm not sure with what transpired with Luka being bounced out of the first round, but he was thinking that Luka might be the new protagonist, like Michael Jordan was. I mean, depending on what happens with the Lakers, if he stays with the Lakers, which I think he will, but there's talk about him maybe going to Orlando, because he knows the coach. And think about if he went to Orlando. Well, I mean, he would make that team.
Well, he's got one more year left. He's got one more year left, but he would, if he doesn't sign the extension, that's when things get really spicy. But I sort of think, the very first caller, SC noted, just it's kind of a bit of a transitory period. I think guys just sort of, and TV guys just sort of gravitate towards Anthony Edwards because he is good television. Like, he's objectively good television. Right. So he's probably the only other one that I could think of in kind of that age range of somebody that still has like a mountain to climb that could be kind of the main character of basketball, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And see, and the other thing that was really interesting is that if you recall when CBS had it, because before NBC back in the 80s, when the Bird and Magic, they were on CBS, and it was okay, but it wasn't to the NBC basically did. They wanted to create a story, and actually the guy, the sports director had incidentally had been a director for NBC for producing shows, and basically when they got basketball in the 90s, he said, I'm going to make a story. And that's what made it so popular, is that every weekend you wanted to watch to see if Michael Jordan was going to win the game. And then when they got in the playoffs, and then of course you had the Gatorade commercials, all this stuff happening. So they're going to do the same thing. They're going to create a story that's going to be completely different from ESPN, ABC, although ESPN's going to be carrying games. And then of course the inside TNT group are going to be doing the pregame and postgame, which will be interesting. Charles Barkley, Shaq, and Ernie, and all those guys. And then, of course, you're going to have Amazon with Dirk and with some other, people. With
it's actually going to be kind of annoying to figure out. It's going to be kind of annoying to figure out how to watch games. Like, I'm not loving the conversation I'm going to have with my mother, where I'm going to have to direct her to different places to when she needs to watch games. So that's okay.
Did you watch any of the? I'll tell you you talk about a lost weekend. I have to say this, that I'm a huge Luka fan, but I do not like the Lakers and I do not like LeBron. And I was really happy when they lost. When they lost the fifth game. But I tell you, did you watch the game 3 and game 4?
Of which series? I'm sorry. I watched game 4.
The Minnesota Lakers.
I only watched game 5. I really didn't want to watch any of the other ones.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, game 4 was because obviously, they were down 2-1, and then they had, the pivotal game 4. And that's when, JJ Redick had them, had the starters play all the second half with no rest, 24 minutes. And I swear to God, man, that game was so freaking close.
Yep.
I mean, it came to a call, which I was shocked that they overturned a call against LeBron and the Lakers, on side out.
When, you know what? I did watch the end of that one. I'm wrong. I remember this now because I only watched like the last 4 minutes, and that was weird. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, what led to that was game 3. Game 3, the Lakers had a 10-point lead going into the fourth quarter. Luka had like a 30 burger. He wound up with 38, but Ant had like 43, and he just went off. I mean, just 3 after 3, and then some other supporting players came, and it was just like, I mean, it was a hurdle. I mean, it was just a tremendous effort for them because I swear to God, the Lakers were going to win that game. And if they won game 4, if they had tied it, then it's, I mean, they're going to
the momentum element tomorrow. There was pretty big. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
It just, I mean, and because but the thing is game 5, they were, they were lacking in energy, obviously, from playing so long, on the game 4, having no break, having a 40-year-old, dinosaur, and then having Luka, who was compromised. Now, I know he was, poor in defense, but people don't take into account his injuries. I mean, he got his back, and this really hurts him because I would say half of the players would probably sit out that game, or they would sit out more time than what he did. He set out he went to the locker, got whatever done, got bandage tape or whatever, came back out. You could see he was completely compromised. Now, he wasn't great before, but he was completely, he was a shell of himself, defensively. Sure. And after that back injury, and people don't take into account the injuries that he had.
Well, because people have a hard time knowing when he's actually injured, because he milks so much stuff. That's why it's like, okay, well, if he's really injured and he looks great after he hits a shot and then he's limping again. I mean, Jalen Brunson did this last night too. It was very annoying.
Uh-huh. Right. So. And and the thing is, it just, like you said, it kind of hurts him because. But see, the thing people don't realize is that Luka is really good at changing directions. He can start, he can stop, and that's how he gets open a lot. I mean, for a big guy and for kind of being, supposedly quote unquote out of shape, he gets open and he fakes out a lot of people, and he's got very good feet. But lateral movement sometimes is not his strong point, and with a back injury like that, I think a lot of people wouldn't even, they wouldn't even try because they could barely walk.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a tough guy. He's a tough dude, but I don't know.
Well, hey, man.
I'm just. Were you happy that he lost, or
I mean,
probably didn't really matter?
I'm sort of ready to watch other stuff for a while. Like I might tune back in for the conference finals, but I need like a week to just not watch and not hear anything about anything, which would be nice. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, man, thanks for kicking us or for keeping us going. Okay.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk soon. Okay. Tyron, welcome
real quick
back.
And I'll get it. Is that okay? I'm going to take this call real quick and I'll get it. Okay.
There we go. How you doing?
Hey, all right. Oh, sorry. I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm at work. But, hey, real quick, I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what MJ said. I always go into the offseason kind of optimistic, but with everything that transpired from January, February on out, I was feeling kind of iffy about the summer, and I still am. However, for some reason, seeing Luka and LeBron get bounced like that kind of made me feel better, and I don't know why, but I was happy.
It was a very it closes off certain lines of Mavericks communication and then opens other ones where I've had to, my mentions for the past 12 hours have been people, different variations of it was right. And also, I just don't have to watch Luka play basketball anymore, which I'm doing, but I'm also not going to miss for the short term.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too, because I didn't want to listen to the narrative all summer long. If Nico would have kept Luka, then we would be doing this, that, and the third. What if, woulda, coulda, shoulda all summer long. And I'm glad we don't have to hear that.
Yep.
And then plus too, I mean, it's like you said with the previous caller too. Watching Anthony Edwards is just plain flat out entertaining.
Yeah. No, he's great.
That whole squad. I mean, Naz Reid and Rudy Gobert going off the way he did is fantastic.
It was I didn't want to ruin any of my fans, any of my Wolves fans like grumpiness, or I'm sorry, their like joy at winning. But like Rudy, it took the Wolves shooting like 7 for 44 from 3, and then Rudy just cleaned up the offensive glass. Like it's not like I don't want to downplay what he did, but it's like they either would have won by like making 7 more threes, which they probably should have done, or Rudy was going to get all those offensive boards. So it's like it was a really weird game in hindsight.
It was. And my best friend is a Lakers fan, and he called me immediately pissed because he's like, this is the game that Rudy Gobert wants to finally show up in his whole career and play like a big man. Nope. But anyway, to piggyback off of that, another one of my points is this summer, I don't know what we do, as I'm sure nobody does because we're dealing with Nico Harrison here. But one thing, and I think Nick Angstead kind of touched on this. I thought about it before he made the show. But anyway, continuity is so important in the league right now.
Yep.
And I don't want Nico to ruin that any further than he's already had. I mean, obviously, us losing Luka, the talent that Luka brought to the team hurt. But what also hurt was the chemistry. The chemistry was just all the way off when he left and AD came in. No practices. These guys have never played before. They only see each other so many times a year. Caleb Martin was hurt when he got here. Christie was just kind of starting to come into it. So the chemistry was just completely off. Not to say the injuries too. And I really hope that this summer that we can kind of keep it, the majority of these guys. Some of them need to go.
They have to figure out something. I was just sort of one of the things I'm kind of losing my mind out today on social media where it's like, you think the Mavs are going to be bad next year? And I'm like, they don't have like these are their healthy guards. And if you don't know this, you're going to laugh. If you do know this, just let me get through it. Our 2 healthy guards currently under contract for next season are Jaden Hardy, Brandon Williams. That's the list.
Yeah.
And like that, like you just got to shore that up. Like the front court depth is obviously quite good, because you just mentioned a couple of the guys that are quite solid in terms of their, you got Max Christie, who he's listed as a shooting guard, but like he's not handling the rock. But then you got Caleb Martin, small forward. Like you have some good rangy kind of 6'5" to 6'8" guys, but not your like play initiators outside of Najee Marshall, who is actually quite good in the ball handling role, but I think it just they expected too much of him in those playing games. So
Yeah.
I think if they're going to do anything, it involves some kind of ball handler. It just has to.
Yeah, that's the only move I would make, and I'm kind of curious. I'm anxious to see how they go about doing that.
Yeah.
Because we could go to the draft. I mean, and I don't even know how I feel about this. They're really hyping this year's draft up. There's some to take your word. There's some dudes in there. But
but one of the things I just shared this with everyone. So they have the I mentioned earlier in the show, they're making everybody do the draft combine or whatever it's called.
Right.
Anybody. And so that I think will be very interesting because for me, a lot of these guys, and I'm reading about it, it's just like the dude who played at Baylor. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
VJ Edgecombe.
If he's 6'6", okay. If he's 6'3.5", which I think he might be, that's a different player.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
but see, even him, the guys that I'm looking at in the draft, as far as like ball handlers, what
Sure.
we actually need, and what the Mavericks track record with draft picks actually playing them, developing them, I don't know how I feel about that.
That's a good point.
For years, we've seen Jason Kidd, just snatch any rookie or draft pick or whatever off the court if they. As soon as they make a wrong read or they, throw the ball away, turnover, whatever, they're in the doghouse immediately.
Oh, that's true.
At this stage of where we are as a franchise, we can't afford that type of coaching. So that kind of leads me to the point: what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you go grab a Kobe White and let go of Gafford, or do you keep the continuity and keep your fingers crossed and try to develop a draft pick, which we've never done in previous history? So I would
kind of like to do if I'm building the team just right now in May, I would like to do both of what you just said, which is go get a guard and also then draft a guard, because I don't trust Jaden Hardy and I don't really want to see him anymore. Brandon Williams I like, but I don't know if you saw the piece of information about how they did his single year contract. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent next year, or not.
So stupid.
Yeah, so it's just like at that point you got to start planning for the future. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to touch on Brandon Williams real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following the team since I was a kid.
That's right.
And I played basketball since I was a kid, still do to this day.
Jealous.
And I have a pretty good feeling about when I see something special, it usually pans out. When people were talking trash about Jalen Brunson and all that kind of stuff, I saw that he was great. Now look at him. You know what I mean? And that's, to this day, that's one of Mark Cuban's biggest regrets. So he says, and I'm going to go out on the limb, might, shoot me in the foot later on. But I really do see something special with Brandon Williams. I really do. And for him to be in Kyrie Irving's back pocket the way that he is, calling and texting him before and after games and picking his brain to the point where we even see some of Kyrie's game in his game, I really hope that the Mavericks develop this guy and don't, he's just not another guard that we have to see in the playoffs in a couple of years that destroys. Because I really do think he's something special.
I really like him. And I'm trying not to overinvest just because I don't want to get mad again. But I like, and Chris Nito in the chat notes that he's 25 years old. But it's, if you want the Mavericks to be a playoff contender, if that's kind of the side of the aisle that you're on, then a guy like him is going to matter. So
that's where we're at right now, though. It's either Brandon Williams or, honestly, bust. Because he's outside of Kobe White. You're not looking at too many point guards out there that we can actually go and grab. I mean, Kobe White to me is off the table, honestly, because the Chicago Bulls are probably going to ask for him in the kitchen sink. But we're looking at Patty Mills. We're looking at,
it's hilarious.
Guys that
it's
are
really not good.
No.
Yeah.
But that's all I have, man.
Hey, no, thank you. This is great. This is a great way to close the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your workday.
Absolutely. Talk to you next time.
All right, have a good one. All right, guys. I expect to record this week. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Josh is working, so I'm going to see if somebody else from Mavs Moneyball wants to talk a little shop with me. If we don't, then I will definitely be back next Friday to talk a little more. Everyone be good. Thank you so much for hanging out and enjoy your weekend. Go Mavs.